first thing we're going to do is set up our blocks that we're going to be using for our Minecraft world. So I went back to the scene that we created earlier in the series, and this is our scale reference. So we just have the UE4 mannequin and SKM Manny in here. And here's some blocks that I did a test just to check out the scale and everything. So let me show you how we're going to go ahead and create these. Previously we made a 1 meter by 1 meter cube, and we took the edges of that and then we beveled that. We're going to be doing something very similar. I'm going to hit Control H on that, but the size is going to be a little bit different. We're going to go create polygon primitives, cube, option box. Let's go ahead and load that up. And we're going to do a width, height, and depth of 50 and a divisions of 2 by 2 by 2, and then do the axis for Y. So go ahead and hit apply, and you can see we're going to get this cube that we see here. All right. And then the next thing that we're going to do is right click and say edge, and I'm going to double click and select all my edges along the outer perimeter. So I'm going to hold down shift. I'm going to keep adding to this, holding down shift, and then just rotating around just like this. And we'll get all these edges. And once we have all of our edges, then we can go ahead and bevel. So we can shift, right click, and say bevel edge. It's possible for us to do that, or we can go into the modeling menu subset that you see here, and we should be able to go to edit mesh and then bevel, and we can find it in that area as well. So with this tool up, I'm going to go ahead and say fraction. I'm going to put this at 0.1 like this, and then segments. If you remember, if we wanted to go as low as possible and still have have even distribution of segments in through here to split off a front, sides, back, top, and bottom, we need to have segments of 2, or we need to pump that up to 4. And if you want to go higher than that, which I wouldn't suggest, I would keep it probably at 4, and that should keep everything nice and even for us at that point. Okay. Now we can rename this to something. MineCraft cube underscore 001, maybe something like that. Okay. And you can go ahead and save this. And the next thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about UV information. So if you're just getting started and you don't really have an understanding of UVs, I actually have put together a video for this, and just 3D modeling fundamentals, understanding UVs. And within this video, if I just scrub through and show you this, what I was trying to set up is just a very simple t-shirt. The example that I give for this is that most people have taken a pretty good look at a t-shirt before, and if you haven't really paid attention to this before, you've know what it's like to have a three-dimensional object that can be split off and laid down in a flat format, and it has graphics on there. So I built a very simple t-shirt shape, and it's got these logos on there that have a front, back, and left and right. And then I did some special stuff with ZBrush to split the model apart and be able to do a morph target animation inside of Maya, showing you what that looks like cut apart and then laid out flat for the UVs for this. Okay, and then on this video, again, if you don't have a good understanding of UVs, I go through the entire modeling process for just making this shirt, doing some simple planar maps on this for the UVs, and then fixing up the UVs for that, and then separating this out into the different borders and unfolding that, getting the UV information to sit correctly, and then taking that model, like I was saying, I took it into ZBrush and then painted up a polypaint texture for the front, left, right, and then the back for this, and then was able to spit out a texture. And I talked just a little bit about, if you're an advanced user, if you wanted to split that model apart and build a morph target from it, just talked about that very briefly, but then assigned a material and then assigned a texture to that, and then just showed basically that I was able to do a morph target or blend shape between the two different pieces and be able to lay that out flat. So hopefully this video gives you an understanding of what is happening in that case for UVs. And again, I like to think that everybody can think of a t-shirt and be able to split that apart if you took scissors to it and cut it apart at the seams and you were able to lay it out flat. That's basically what we're doing with any of the 3D objects that we have, and they can get a whole lot more complex than that. We can do creatures and characters, and we could do metal mechs and everything like that. So it does get a lot more complicated than that, but if you can just wrap your mind around the t-shirt analogy, I think that'll probably help. Okay, so that's if you want to get into that and you need a much deeper dive into UVs and what's happening with UVs. Now, when we created our cube, if we open up the UV editor window, cubes automatically have this layout to them. That's kind of like this this format here. If we right click in here and say face, and we selected our faces, let's see which one. This is the front of the cube, and then let's go over here and let's see, we've got our left side, then we've got our right side. This is the top, this is the back, and then this is the bottom, the way it's laid out like this. So with those divisions that we got, this actually makes our job a little bit easier. We can just right click on here and say edge and double click along these edges through here, and I can hold down shift and I can select these, and what I'm going to do is just get all these separated out like this. So I'll zoom out on this, and then we'll go to the UV toolkit area and go to the cut and sew area. I'm going to open that up. I'll just go ahead and say cut like this, and then now we've got all these different faces cut apart. So we could potentially do the front of this block like this, so we can double click our faces, and if you want to convert selections from one type to the other, you can do control and then hit F12 to do UVs, or you can just right click on here and say UV, and if you have a UV shell, you can just double click it and you can put it on W for move, and then we can move this thing off to the side here. I'm going to zoom out, and we're going to go past the 0 to 1 space. So this is the 0 to 1 space. If we put everything in here and put the checkered texture on there, you can see it's going to tell us UV1. This is the UV 0 to 1 space right in through here, and if we push it over here past that, then it's going to tell you then we're going to the negative 1v1, and so I can just push this over here temporarily, but you always want to make sure everything is going to be in the 0 to 1 space a little bit later. So we can just push this off and do the work that we're doing for everything right now. What I'm going to do is put the front here. I'm going to go get the sides. So again, if we right click on here and say UV, we can just double click on this, and if we have a UV shell, we can just click and drag and move that around. So I'm going to get this pretty close to this, so I'm going to do the front, left, and then also the right, like this. Okay, what we're going to end up doing is make a square texture, and it's going to be pretty low in pixel resolution. So because of that, we have 6 sides, and we're not going to be able to make a perfect square out of things. We will be able to try to lay three shells out at the top and then 3 on the bottom. So I'm going to do front, left, and right. And then what I'm going to do is take the, let's go to top, and I'm going to put this in the, I think I'll put that, I'll put that right here. Actually, I'll put it right here. I'll put the top and through here. And then this will be the back. So I'm going to double click on that. And do that. And then I will do this as the bottom. So this will be the top. This will be the bottom of this. You can lay this out however you want, but you're going to want to keep this in order and make sure you're kind of thinking through this at this point. The next thing I'm going to do is I know that we're going to be making each one of these areas. I'm going to want to like paint 16 pixels by 16 pixels for each one of these squares. So let's hop over to Photoshop and let's just take a look at this real quick, okay? So if we're in Photoshop and we were going to make a new document and we just said we're going to make this 16 pixels by 16 pixels, we'll go ahead and create it like this. It's going to be super small for sure. I'm going to hold down Control Alt and then hit the plus button to increase the size and increase the size of my canvas like that. We have our layers visible over here, and if I have a Wacom tablet and you can paint with something. I'm going to go to the foreground color and I'm just going to treat this as if this is like dirt through here. So I'm just going to paint this. Let's go ahead and put it on the brush right here, and I have a bunch of different brushes that I can use. I'm just looking for a soft round airbrush like this. You might go to brushes and through here, and you could just probably find general brushes and then just do a soft round like that. And to control the size of your brush, you can hit the bracket key left or right. That's underneath backspace, right underneath the underscore and then the plus area. And you can also right click and then click and drag left and right, and that'll make it larger or smaller. So we can fill with this, and what you might want to do is actually paint with, instead of the paintbrush, you could use the pencil tool. And if you use the pencil tool, you could make your cursor the size of a pixel. And at that point, you could start choosing some different colors like this, or you might be able to paint some different patterns. And maybe if I hold down Alt, I can click on there and get a color picker, or I can come back over here and make that a little bit lighter and through there. And so if I hold down Control and Alt and then minus, I can zoom this out and start to get an idea of what this looks like. Now, as you get in closer to this, it starts to actually show you each individual pixel breakup like that. Okay, so you might want to just start understanding at least how to paint some of these patterns that you're going to want to work with. Okay, so we could consider this one side of our block. So let's say this is the front of our face that we're working with on there. In order to fit all three of them across this way and all three of them across this way, we're going to need a document that's 48 pixels wide, and we'll just make it 48 pixels high too. So we'll just keep it a square format. So we can go to edit, actually image, canvas size, and go there, and we'll change this to 48 by 48, and I'll just have it grow from this corner like that because we already have an image set up like that. And if I go through here, this was my background color, and so that's why I did that. Let's go back to this. I messed something up here. Didn't get the number correct. I'm going to hit undo. So Control Z, edit, canvas size, image, canvas size. Go back to the corner. Let's do 48 by 48. Hit OK, just like that. And so now we've got a tile within there. If we're using layers, if we tap M for the marquee tool, need the rectangular one, I can just copy this and then paste it, and then tap V to move this over like this, and then tap V after I hit Control V to paste it, and I'm going to hit Control V again to paste, Control V, Control V. And so basically here's our different tiles that we have. I'm going to double click on this background just to release it and then get rid of it. To get rid of the background, you have to have some other layers and then double click it and then release it. I'll hit Control V again and see if I can move this to the upper corner. So what I'll try to do is arrange these like this. So try to find out which one is which. And if you keep things organized, you could call this, this is the right side. This was the front. And let's go right here. Let's go left with this one. I'm going to take this and drag this up here and this one here. And what we did for this was made this the trying to think of what this was in the middle. I think in the middle, put the top, and then this was the bottom. And this was the back. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I am going to put it on my brush, and I'm going to make a new layer. And I was going to put some text on here real quick. So I just tapped X and I can switch back and forth between those two, foreground and background color. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to do right, and this is supposed to be the front. This is supposed to be the left, and this was the back. It's hard to see that. This was the top, and then this was the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer and throw it at the very, very bottom of this. Like this, and I'll just call this BKG. I know we got rid of that earlier, but we just released it, and I'll just fill it with that. And let's go ahead and save this as a texture real quick and just test this out and see if we have this set up correctly. Okay, so I'm going to say File, Save As, and I'm going to go to on my computer, save on my computer, and navigate to where you want to save this. I'm just going to make a folder, and I called mine Textures, and I can just save this as a Photoshop document first. MineCraft template version A_001, just like that. Hit OK, and then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do a save as like this. And I'm going to save on my computer, and then this time, in order to get a target file, I want to save this as a target file. I'm not a big fan of how they change this in Photoshop, but you have to save as a copy. And then at that point, you have the option to save as a target file. So I'm just going to call this MineCraft template version A001, save, and just save it as 24 bits. That's red, green, and blue. If we had alpha, we'd have to save as a 32-bit. So we got that. Now we can go back on over to Maya. We have our cube, and if we hit Control A, we'll bring up our attribute editor, and we should be able to see the material for this. It's just our Lambert material. If we want, we could assign a new material, and maybe we should do that. Just select the object, and right click on that, you can say Object Mode, and then go down to the bottom and say Assign New Material. And let's just make this one a blend. And I'm going to call this M_Minecraft block version A_VA, like that. Okay. So now that's assigned to that, and now we want to map our texture to the color area and through here. So we're just going to go ahead and click this map button, and you should be able to select a file node. We're going to do that and then navigate to where your texture sits. Okay, so I've navigated. Go ahead and select it. I'm going to hit open for that. And then I'm just going to steal the name at the end of this, copy it, and I'm going to paste it into the file name right there. And it'll take the .tga and put an underscore in there for us. Okay, now in order to see our textures, we can go into the viewport and we can tap 6 for this to see it like this, and it's going to look really, really bad. We can take our image and our UVs, and we can right click on here and say UVs. Now we can drag them all over into the 0 to 1 space, and we can scale them up to get them somewhat close to being the right area and through there. And it's still going to look pretty horrible until we hit Control A, and we'll bring up the material for this, and then we can go back to the color area where we had this. And what we can do for the filtering type, we can turn it to off, and then now we can see what that looks like as individual pixels at that point. Okay, so now we can take a look at here, and then for the image we can go to unfiltered on here for the UVs too, and then that will help us to be able to determine what it is that that we're looking at and through here. And so again, what we laid out and what we should have on here that's going to help us kind of determine what we've made. We do have the top. This is the back, but it's flipped on us. So if we double click this and we rotate this around like this. Now to rotate it around numerically, we can hold down V or J, sorry, and we can constrain this as we rotate this around, and it'll snap for us. So here's the bottom, and let's say if we moved it like this, that's actually correct for us, so that will give us the bottom. This was the front, so that's correct for us. We have the right, and this is a left for us. Now if I spend a little more time on that, getting that cleaned up, that would probably have been pretty pretty good. So we do know we've got 48 pixels by 48 pixels on here, and if we wanted to get our grid set up for this, we can actually get our grid to where our grid matches with our actual pixels that we have. Okay, to get that set up, we can go to View, and then go to our grid and go to the option box for that, and then make sure we have subdivision lines set up. And I set grid lines every 1 unit, and then put the subdivisions up to 48. And then now we've got grid. The grid will actually match exactly what we've got going on for our pixels that we have. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to get these things snapped up like this. We're going to get these actually lined up with the actual pixels. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and then just move these out of the way and get this to the very first part of this. And what I'm going to do is just try to get this scaled up the best that I possibly can. So I'm going to do that, and then now I'm going to get in a little bit closer, try to get it lined up right along through there. And if we want this to actually snap to this, we can select the UVs along here and then hold down X and then snap there. Snap here. Snap here. and snap and through there. And so I can go get the next one lined up just like this. So if you take a look at this, we should be able to get it's like crosshairs almost, right? We've got this lined up right in the center here, and we can just scale this up and try to get this as large as we possibly can. And to deselect, you can hold down Control and deselect like this. And now I can hold down X and then snap across there, but I need to get rid of these as well. So I can hold down X just like that, and then get rid of these, holding down Control. And I would need to actually get rid of this one too. Just snap this, hold down X. And just snap these up. Just like that. And should be able to snap these up. I should be able to select across these as well now because these are done, so I can hold down X and just snap here, snap here, and just make sure everything is snapped up. So this is something that has definitely tripped me up, and what I'm used to in Maya is if we select a bunch of things like this and hold down X, we could snap this to the grid. It looks like everything's snapped up really good for us, and basically if I show you this, and this is completely off, and we selected these UVs and hold down X and snap, it's snapping to the grid, but it's keeping the spacing that we have. You would think that this is a universal control in the transform area, and they do have a move and snap setting, and I usually turn this retain component spacing off to make sure everything snaps to the grid in a straight line. But for UVs, they have their own area for transform up the top, and you go here, and they've got a retain component spacing on there. So that does throw me off for sure. And then now whenever we hold down X and then snap, we should be snapping to the grid, and I was not paying close enough attention to that, and I'm glad that that popped up because it's probably going to happen to you. And then now we are actually snapping everything directly to the grid, and there's no wiggle room, no play in this at all. They're actually, everything's just going to line up and be snapped directly with the grid like this. And so I need to go through here like this and snap that as well, just like that. Okay, so I've done the first two. I think you know the pitfalls, so I'm going to put this in a time-lapse mode and then just get the remainder of these squares, put it into place, and you'll have to do the same thing as well. Okay, now that the UVs are set up and everything is working, let's take a look at hopping back over to Photoshop and maybe making some better looking art here. So I'll go back over here to Photoshop. I'm just going to call this maybe guide on the top. This is pretty horrible, the handwriting on that, and if I would have taken more time for that, I think that probably could have made things go a little bit smoother. So I can, again, just hide that, and I think I'll probably just work on this front tile. Now, if I don't want to paint outside of this, I've already got this transparency to where this is transparent, and we've got pixels on here. So I can just go ahead and lock the transparency of this, and then now I can paint and do whatever I want to this and not have to worry about anything getting messed up. What I'm going to try to do is tab G for my gradient, and if I go to my gradient types, I think there's probably a basic, and then there's a foreground to transparent. I'd put it on that, and then if I've got it a little bit darker in through here, what I can do is hold down Alt and then click on this for the color picker. So we've got maybe a darker color for the gradient, and I can do a linear gradient and just hold down Shift and then click and drag up like this. And I can get some nice gradation on there like that. And I think what I'm going to do is go back to my brush, tap B, and then zoom in on this a little bit. Again, if I go through here, if I do my color picker, and if I got these darker areas, maybe what I'm going to do is make it even a little bit darker than that. And maybe that's a little bit too dark. And if I push this way, it's going to do saturation. And if I can push it more red or yellow, wherever you want to push these colors to. But I'm going to be somewhat subtle with things. And if I zoom out, Control minus, I can get rid of this like gridded pattern thing and start to see what I'm painting with there at that point. Like that. And I'm going to hold down Alt and then click on this for the lighter part, and then I'm actually going to make it completely this color on top. I'll select some of these and through here maybe paint like this. So actually I personally think that this is pretty difficult to make things look really nice and appealing with just so few pixels. But maybe you might find this kind of fun. But I definitely think it's challenging for sure. So I'll hold down Alt and then click on this for this color that we've got here. And then if we've got the bottom, I can show that and I can hold the pixels for that. If I hit Alt backspace, I can fill with this foreground color. If I hit Control backspace, I fill with this color here. So I can fill that whole thing darker like that, and then maybe I go to my color picker, make it a little bit darker, and I know that this is going to be on the bottom of this. Just like this. Let me see if opacity works with the pencil brush. Pull this over here a little bit like that. And it does look like it works with that. Okay, cool. So I'll drag that up to 100%. I'm just going to pick this. I just think I made these a little bit too dark. Now what I could do is I could use my Magic Wand tool, put this on tolerance of 1. And maybe select nope. Yeah, it should be on a point sample. So I was hoping I could select all of those pixels that I just painted like that in one go. So we got that there. And again, I think we could spend a whole lot of time on that, making that look really good. So I'm going to go to the top here. I'm going to take my color picker, hold down Alt, and then click right there. And take the top, and I'm going to fill with the foreground color. So again, Alt backspace like that, and then maybe this time I'll select this and then go choose a color that's just a little bit lighter. Like that. And I do know if I have the marquee tool, if I did a square like this. Let's just try to get those 2 pixels like that. If I put it on my Move tool, V, I can hold down Alt and then drag out like copies of that pixel on that. Then maybe now at that point I just draw a few things like this. And through here, to save time, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to the front and copy that. So I hold down Control and you select this thing here. It selects the what is not transparent. It selects the actual pixels. So I can do Control C for copy, and I need to go to the front. Control C for copy, and then go to the right one, and I just pasted it in there. So I held down Control and selected that. So now I can go to, we've got, actually I pasted on top of it, so I can just hit Control E to merge that down, just like that. And then if I go turn on the left one, I'll select the pixels for that, Control V, and then I'll paste over the top of that, and then I just rearrange these layers, hit Control E to merge that down. And then now we've got the back. Hold down Control and select the pixels for that. Control V, that should put that layer right there. And I'll hit Control E to merge that down like that. Okay, and I'm just going to save this Photoshop file. At that point, I could probably paint a little bit into here. So what's kind of cool about this, the way we laid this out, is that we know that this is the front, left, and then right. So these all tile together. So we can, if we see some kind of pattern starting to emerge here, we could actually bust up that pattern. So if we just go like to the front, and maybe I go here, and I've got that pixel lock on there, so if I paint like this, it's just going to paint in that block area like that. So I don't have to be too worried about over painting. So I will do some shape like that, and maybe we can bust up that edge just a little bit and through there. And I'll get a little bit lighter. Maybe I'll take the opacity of that and drag that down. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and to do save as a copy, Control Alt S. Let us save like that, and then we can choose the target format again. So we'll do that and hit save, and we'll replace it. Hit OK, and let's go over to Maya. And once we are in Maya, we can hit Control A, and then bring up the attribute editor for this, and then go to the image, and we can hit reload for our texture. And for some reason, I'm not exactly sure what was going on with Maya. It's kind of I think it's a draw bug, but I had to tap 4 and then tap 5 and then 6 to get the textures to reload. I have done this before. If textures don't reload for you, you can go to Render Viewport 2.0, and I think it's reload all textures. So you might have to do that to see the update of this and through there. The other thing we can do under lighting, we can say use, let's say lighting, use default lighting, use flat lighting. That's what I'm looking for here. Okay, so now we could just see exactly what's going on with this thing color-wise and what it looks like. Okay, so this is our first brick that we've got going on here. I'm gonna hit save for this real quick. And then the last part, let's at least get this into Unreal and get this exported out. So we need to take our block. I'm going to steal the name from this, so I'm going to hit Control C, and then I'm going to say File, Export Selection, do the option box. This right here, like this. And I'm going to go to my FBX area, and I'll call this MineCraft Cube _001. Save that out and export that out. Okay, so the next part is going to be us getting into Unreal and starting a brand new level for everything. But this should give you everything you need to build your Minecraft brick. Now, this is up to you. If you want to leave this at this origin like this, you can do that, or you can hold down X and then move this up. Let's see, I'm going to move this up to 25 like that, and I can say modify freeze transformations and then modify reset transformations, and it'll put the pivot there at the center and this will be like sitting on a block like this. Now if we snap this down like that, we'll have to go down 50 units, and that's fine. I'm going to re-export this thing out. File, export selection, option box again, and I think I'll do this right there like that, and keep everything like that. It's up to you how you want to bring it in. It would be fine either way, but this might give you more predictable results on how to get this thing snapped up inside the world. Okay, here we are in Unreal Engine 5, and I'm just going to go to Window, Layout. I'm just using the UE4 Classic layout. Just made a brand new level, and you can do that as well. Just say File, New Level. You should be able to create this. I just created this basic new level, and you can create that, and that's exactly where I'm at with everything right now. They do have everything nice and buttoned up with this lighting folder, and it's got directional light, exponential height fog, atmosphere, volumetric clouds, and everything else like that. So nice on that. I'm going to get rid of the floor. Don't want that. And what I'm going to do is go into the content area, make a new folder, and just call this MineCraft _ blocks like that. And I'll right click and say new folder, and I'll call this meshes, and I'll right click and make a new folder and call this materials like that. And let's go into the meshes folder, double click on that, right click and say import, and we're going to go navigate and find this new Minecraft cube that we just made. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it to create a new material because I know I need a material for this. I'm going to say import all, and it's also pulled in the textures for us, which is pretty cool. So that is an option. I needed to do that anyways, but if we needed to pull in the textures, just remember we can right click on there and we can import, and you can navigate to where your textures are, and you can find that as well. So in order to get a textures folder, right click and then just say new folder and call this textures like this, and I'll go back to the meshes area and we can save everything. I'm going to just double click on the material by accident. Let's just right click on here and say save. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save this as well. And because we pulled in the material, it pulled in the texture and it hooked us up to the base color for us, which is kind of cool. Now we could potentially try to take the red channel and run it to the specular channel and maybe try to limit some of the specularity that's happening on the model based off of the texture that we have. I'm just going to go ahead and hit save for that, and we've got our Minecraft cube already. We can double click on that and we can take a look at that. Hold down L and then click and drag around to change your lighting position on here. So you can do that right there. And let's double click on the texture and pull that up, and then zoom in on this a bit closer. And just like what we did with the Mario texture, let's zoom in on this a little bit and see what we've got going on as far as mip mapping goes, and turn that off so we get a much cleaner texture. So I'm going to put the mip map gen settings to no mip maps, but then from this texture group just put this on there's a 2D pixels unfiltered like that, and you can hit save for that, and then take a look at the cube, and that looks better. If we go and take a look at the material for this, maybe we can move this around, and let's try to put it on a cube like this, and we could zoom out on that just a bit. It still doesn't look the same. We could actually take our mesh that we have and select it, and we could put this in the just set the preview mesh based off this browser selection that we have here, and zoom in on that. And I'm getting extreme slowdown right now, maybe because I'm recording. I'm going to go ahead and pause this real quick and then come right back. Okay, now that we have our brick made, we're just going to go ahead and click and drag it into the world, and I'm going to go put this at 0, 00 like this, and made a folder called MineCraft cubes, and it's going to throw that in there, so anytime we duplicate these off, we can just have that in that folder that we have. And let's get rid of this real quick. So just select a block. I can hold down Alt and then click and drag out. Now if we change our grid increments to be 50, we should be able to just hold down Alt and then click and drag out, and then drag out a version of this like this. And I'll be able to take this one and move this around and take all three of these, hold down Alt and then click and drag out, and drag my copies out. And if I want this to be smaller, like maybe 10, then I can maybe push this up like this, maybe one up, maybe one's down a little bit further, and just trying to make something somewhat interesting to look at, like that. Okay, and if we wanted, we could take these and we could just select them all, hit Control G, and that'll make a group, and then now we can hold down Alt and then drag out copies of the group that we have. Okay, and then I'm going to search for player start, and then click and drag that out into the world, and then put this at 0, 0, 0, like this, and then raise it up, and then hit end to have it click down on through there. And I'll hold down Alt and then drag out a few more groups just to test this out. And we can select these and hold down Alt and then drag out like that. And I'll get it framed up and then set a camera view for it. Control 1, 2, so you got 1, 2. However you want to do that. I'm going to hit play. So I'm going to just do play in selected viewport like this. And just take a look at what this looks like for somebody walking around on here. So we've got this terrain that we have on here. Okay, so in the next few videos we'll take a look at how we can try to make this look a little better, and building different brick types and things like that, and make a nice looking, appealing little world out of our MineCraft blocks.